Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Anna Walker here with StabThingsIntoExistence.com. Welcome to the studio. Excuse me. Thank you for understanding. I know I wasn't alone yesterday in needing to just take a step back from everything to process all of it. And I appreciate you being kind to me and letting me do that. Um, and I have a renewal in my spirit, which is a good thing. So let's talk about where we were on Tuesday. And on Tuesday, I started talking about okay, what can we do and can we felt on craft felt with non wool yarns and fibers? Absolutely. And I showed you how to take some of those yarns and to cut them into strips about 2 inches long and then to fluff them out. Now, I did a little fluffing with my fingers. I did a lot of fluffing with my two dog brushes that I use as hand carders. So these are the four yarns that I fluffed up and the corresponding fiber that they fluffed into. And even this one that I didn't think was going to be able to fluff with the dog brushes did do a decent job of fluffing up. Now there's still some strips of some of the cotton fibers in there, but I'm not concerned about that because this is probably going to be sky or watercolor, so it's going to work out just fine. So these are the four yarns and the four piles of fluff that I got from that. Now, it's a decent palette, but I decided to grab three more colors of non-feltable yarn fibers and fluff a little bit of those up because I needed a little pop of brightness to this very subdued colorway. And I fluffed up some silk noil. Now, this is a waste product, but you get some wonderful texture and sheen from the silk, and we're going to use these to mix in with our base colors to create a little landscape here. So I'm going to move all of the fluff and fiber off, and let's just draw a little landscape. Now, I want to show you one that I did. This is craft felt that I just needle felted fibers onto. Honestly, I couldn't tell you if these are wool fibers or non-wool fibers, but they have been needle felted onto just a plain piece of craft felt here. And this gives you an idea of something that you might do with craft felt with yarn fibers that you've got around. This is based on a picture from a few years back that I received, and I just wanted to see if I could recreate it. And I think I did okay. So let's use that as kind of an inspiration. Now I've just got my Sharpie gel pen here, and we are just going to make a basic horizon line here. And then I want to have some mountains, and we'll have some trees that'll come up probably. And then I think I want to do a little bit of a shoreline here. Now, I know you can't see that very well, and it's mostly because I'm not drawing it really super full, but I wanted to just get some basics down here. You can use a piece of chalk, you can use a pen, you can use a Sharpie, whatever you decide you want to use. And I am going to take some of this fiber that came from that yarn that I didn't think I was going to be able to fluff up, and a little bit of this bright blue that I grabbed to go along, and some of this deep teal that was in our original bits. And I am just going to blend these together to create my water interest here. And we'll start working that onto the craft felt here. And I'm just sort of blending it with my fingers. Probably have too much in my hand. just to blend it a little bit. This is also where you can use the dog brushes. Let me grab those real quick because this gives you another opportunity to see how I use these as hand carders. So I just take some of the fluff on the dog brush and then I just brush back and forth to blend these fibers together a little. And you see it didn't take us very long at all. I like these because they've got a little push that will bring the fiber up off of the back. And now I can take and do the same thing with this other batch. But having a couple of dog brushes like this, when you aren't sure if you're going to be doing a lot of fiber blending, this is a whole lot less expensive than what hand carders are, and it does a decent job. I won't say that it's identical to hand carders because it's not. You know, when you do things professionally, you certainly want to have professional tools, but all of you aren't going to be professional, you know, carders. You're not going to be professional fiber blenders. So we still have some big lumps in here, and that's okay. I'm not worrying about that. I can either pull them out and not worry about it that way, or I can just let those little bits of dark fiber be in there. And I pulled out a couple of them. So we're going to build out first our area here, and I want to do right along the line of where I want that shoreline to be. It's going to be the first thing that I am going to outline here. And this is all completely and totally up to you and what you see and what you want to see. And so I'm just going to stab very gently right along the upper edge of where that line is. And then I can sort of brush those edges over and get right along that line and have a nice crisp shoreline here. Now you can freehand this, of course. I always like to have at least a little something to go with to give me a nice little bit of direction as I'm starting to put my fibers down. Now I am using my wool pressing mat as a needle felting pad today, and I like it when I'm working on some flat pieces because it allows me to make sure that I'm keeping the needles from going too deep, and I'm just anchoring my fibers directly into the craft felt that I have down here as the base. Now remember when we fluffed out this one blue yesterday, it had some sparkly stuff, some Angelina here. And I'm just letting that Angelina poke out wherever it pokes out. Okay, so now that I've got that edge done, I can come in and I can work all of these fibers in here to give me my beautiful little lake shore. And it's just about adding a little bit of fiber at a time. You notice that I did not add a super thick layer. I'm just adding thin layers here, and I'm drafting them out a little bit just to give me my color for my little bit of lake stuff. And I think I want to do a little bit of this dark again with some more of this, but I'm just going to take a smaller bit here. I didn't grab any of the bright, I just grabbed some of the deep teal here. I'm going to use this to give us this next round of color. Now I'm not worried about having an end spot because it's likely that I will trim this off and make it squared or round or whatever after I get done with the felting. So I'm not really concerned about having a nice even line anywhere. And I'm just drafting things out so that we go from a little bit darker to a little bit lighter to very light. That may be something that I'll switch later on as I get to working the process a little bit more. But for right now, it's what I want to do. And just grab a little bit more fiber in here. And you see that the Angelina and the little bits of white threads from that one yarn that didn't open up super well are actually, and I'm going to take this off because I don't think we're going to go quite that far. I think this is where we're going to be. Sometimes the fiber speaks to you and lets you know, yep, that's far enough. And then we can draft this off. And maybe we've got just a little, nope, I don't like it. See, it's all about just playing with the colors you're putting down and seeing if it works for you. Okay, so we've got this basted in nicely. We've got a good amount of fiber here. I like the swirls that are going around. Every once in a while, I'm going to lift this up off of the back so that I don't have to worry about those fibers getting deeply embedded. And then after I lift it off, I'm just going to do another pass here real quick. All right, so we've got our shoreline there. Now I want to work this area of the shore around and then start working in the mountains and the sky a little bit. So we've got the green, and I love this green from that yarn that we fluffed up. And this is going to be the first thing that I'm going to put in here right along the shoreline. And I'm not worrying if I've got little variegations of texture in here because I think that just adds to the piece. It gives a little bit of dimension. It makes it look like it's not so flat. And again, if we've got really chunky bits, we can pull those out. And then just keep working along our shoreline. But it's just adding little bits at a time. Let's get some more to go right along in here. And I have this line here that I'm just going to let be a little texture right there. You can hear my squeaky chair. Oh, we've got some lumps here, and I think I'm just going to use them. Seems like the fiber wants me to use them. I get a lot of folks that think I'm a little too woo-woo when I say that you've got to allow the fiber to have an opportunity to tell you what it wants to do, but I honestly believe that. I think that we have to allow the materials that we use to be part of the process of creating. I mean, the fiber has memory, the fiber has um, texture. The fiber has um, even attitude sometimes about how it's going to work. And if you don't allow it to be part of the creating process, you'll find yourself creating pieces that aren't really satisfying to you. So I always err on the side of letting the fiber do a little bit of talking of its own. Okay. And I am probably going to trim this off about right here. So again, let's see if I can find a piece of paper here that might help us with that. So I'm probably going to trim this off about right there. And that'll work just fine. So again, I'm not worrying too much about the edges. Now I want to start building in some of this background area. So I am going to take some more of the green and I am going to let it have these lumpy bumpy bits in here, but I'm going to add a little bit of the silk in a couple of colors. And I'm just going to blend these together. Now this will be a lot chunkier of a blend. I can certainly take the dog brushes and I can use that to blend these fibers together. But the one thing that I like about this silk noil is that it doesn't, there are chunks in here that are not going to break up and they're not going to just be quiet. They're gonna have their saying things. So I'm just gonna build this up here. And those chunks from those two colors of silk noil are going to stay a little bit lumpy and chunky. And that's good. You see that I'm letting the fibers just sort of come in and out and giving us a very natural looking mountainscape or hillscape here. And then it just sort of blends right into our green that is in our foreground. Now I want to build a couple of more and have them look like they are even further in the background. So I'm going to take another little bit of this green from the yarn that we fluffed out. And I think I'm going to just use a little bit of the olive and I'm going to use just a pinch of that brown of the silk noil because I want to get it a little darker. And the next one will be darker still. And again, I just put the fiber on and I work it a couple of times between the carders. Ouch, that one hurt. Poked my finger with one of the tines on my dog brush. It happens if you're not careful. And I was being a little bit reckless. All right, so let's pull these off. And let's see if this is going to be dark enough. Is that going to be dark enough? I think I want to go a little bit darker. So I'm going to pull in some more of this brown, but I'm also going to pull in a little bit of this deep teal. And let's see if that gives me that darker shade that I'm looking for. The silk noil is going to have a tendency to stick in your tines a little bit. Just be, a little bit aware of that. Okay, so I pulled in some of this teal, and because it's a little lumpy bumpy, it didn't really do what I wanted it to, but I think it's going to fit right over here as a nice little faraway hill on this side. Another little piece here. Let's just continue this on this side. See there? We just had a little mountain in the far distance pop into existence here. All right, so now we've got this, and I'm going to take part of it and hold it aside because this part is going to be this mountain right here. And you see how that just slightly darker color allows this to be more in the background. A tiny bit more right here. Put that right there. Keep missing the hole here. There we go. Okay, now with this, I need a lot more of the brown here. And again, this is the silk noil. And because it's just a tiny amount, I'm going to go ahead and finger blend this. There we go. Okay, so let's just pull off a little bit at a time. I'm going to start right in here. We've got another mountain in the distance. Let's bring in a little bit more here. I'm just building up an area at a time. I'm using a size 38 needle right now. You could use a 38 or 40. You could use a multiple needle tool if you wanted to. When I'm working with this wool pressing mat, I tend to work only with a single needle or with multiple needles in my pen tool. And that's because the mat is much denser than my usual felting foam. And as a result, it can be easier to break or bend needle tips off. And let's pull this in right in here. Tiny bit more here. A little bit there. All right. So we can keep working this as long as we want, but I want to put in the sky, and then I want to show you a couple of little tricks for building in a little bit of texture. So the first thing I want to do is get my sky laid out. And I think we're going to start with the sun here and going into this deeper blue, because this looks like it's further in the distance. This looks like it's closer up to me. So I'm going to take some of this yellow and we're just going to start this process off. And there is a little bit of Angelina in this yellow that I think is going to work out just fine for a sunrise situation here. And I'm thinking sunrise because that's what it feels like to me. So I'm just building in my first color right along my mountain ridge. Bring in some more here. I want the yellow to come in underneath the other colors that I'm going to be using, especially underneath the orange. So I'm drafting it out in a little bit lighter format. Be careful if you use your needle to draft out like I'm doing here, because if you do this too hard, you can break off the tip of your needle. So be very careful if you follow what I'm doing. All right, now let's bring in some of this silk. Now this is the silk noil. So it's going to be lumpy and bumpy and chunky. So we really need to draft it out so that it's not so lumpy and bumpy and chunky. So I'm just going to start adding it. See that little bit of texture that's coming in? And what I'm probably going to do is lay out the orange, and then I'll come back with a little bit more yellow just to give us that shading that I'm looking for. Yes, I could blend the yellow and the orange together, and I may indeed do that once I'm seeing, okay, this is a little too chunky. So I'm just going to pull it off, including some of the yellow. Let's just blend some of this up. And this will open up that silk noil a little bit more and allow it to not be quite so chunky. Still going to have little bits of chunks in here, but I don't think it's going to be, yeah, it's not near as chunky as it was before. All right, so let's go ahead and put this down, and then I'm still going to add a little more yellow over it just to work as a way to build the color and blend that color out. So let's grab some more of this yellow. I just want to get a little bit here. I'm just going to draft it out and make it as thin as I possibly can. And just lay it over this area that I added a little bit of silk noil to. And let's just put this into place. And that gives us a little bit more of a shading, of a gradation. And I can play with this a little bit more as we go along, but now I want to build in my blue here. So I'm going to start, and with this, I'm getting rid of some of the chunks. I'm grabbing in the tiniest little bit of leftovers that I have from the water so that I can build in my shading down here. And let's pull in some more of the brighter blue and lay it on top. Bring in some more. I think, see how this looks. Just a little bit more of this yellow right over where we're cutting that blue in, just to let us see. This gives us the idea. Oh yeah, there we go. The sun is just beginning to shine in the darker areas of the sky. They're being overwhelmed by the beautiful warmth of the sun. And I'm just going to add a little bit of this deep teal on this end, just so that we can see that light into dark. I'm trying to get nothing but fluff here. Now we've got our mountains just sort of fading into the dark area of the painting. And we're just building in a little bit of a deeper color on this end of the painting so that we can see that the sun is shining into the darkness here. Okay, I am relatively happy. I will probably mess with this a little bit more, but I had forgotten that I have this peach here. And I want to take this peach and see how it's going to look over the top edge of our sky. Oh, yeah, that's nice. If any of you have ever seen the sunrises or sunsets in Kansas, you'll know that that is exactly what I am going for here I am just pulling in these colors that are always so amazing. And it's just about layering tiny little bits of color on top of tiny little bits of color on top of tiny little bits of color. And that gives you this amazing gradation that just has a tendency to look more and more watercolor painting like than fiber. Yeah, I like this little bit of that peach yarn that we had that we fluffed up because it is giving us a little subtle tone down of the direct colors. All right, I think I'm happy with the way the colors are put together in here. So now I'm going to lift it up because we haven't lifted up in a while. And you can see we've got a good felting on because we can see a nice shadow on the back side. But I want to take and I want to show you a couple of little techniques for helping to pull some things together. Now, we can use little bits of the yarn that didn't really pull apart as a way to sort of outline different areas, and that makes it possible for them to sort of stand out just a little bit more. I will work the sky a lot so that it's nice and flat and goes into the background of the picture while also being, prominent in the picture. I know that doesn't make sense. Um, but I want to show you that just using tiny little bits of the yarn that didn't really pull apart as a way to outline your pieces of landscape here just brings a little extra touch of dimension in. Now you can do that all the way along. You can also take and work the areas between, and I actually want to get my green yarn here. I'm going to take a piece of the green yarn. Remember, this is what our green fluff started out with. And I'm going to unply it. And this is a 4-ply. I'm just going to try and get it to unply without tearing apart. And we're getting it. We're getting it. There we go. And now I'm going to take these two apart. So I'm going to take just this single ply here, and I'm going to anchor it at one end of my shoreline. And I'm just going to outline my shoreline with this little line that is a little more deliberate because it's spun a little bit, and it just gives us a nice separation between the shore and the water. Now you could also have chosen to use the blue instead. I didn't because the blue that I used for the water is a variegated yarn. It's not a solid color yarn. So I chose to use the green instead. And I'm just holding it slightly taut as I use my needle to just stab directly into the yarn itself, and then I can work this all the way around to get that to stay in position. So you see, just adding that simple little line gives a little bit of dimension already. Adding this little line gives us a little bit of dimension already. Now I'll want to make sure that I work the shoreline a little bit more, and I can add some little extra details if I want, but for right now I'm just trying to make sure that I've got everything nicely felted. So I am working a grid pattern to get these fibers to connect a little bit more firmly and a little bit more tightly and closely. We can still add color and texture as we want, but I want to even out this water line so that I can show you how you can use the variegations that are happening between the different fibers that we use to create a little bit more interest in the water line. And I'll show you what I mean here in just a second because we are almost all the way across. Okay, so when I look at the water line, actually when I look at the sky, when I look at the water line, when I look at the mountains, the one thing that I will always go for is to reinforce the darker areas just by stabbing over and over in those darker areas. And that tends to bring in some interest and some feeling of texture and depth in certain areas just by stabbing where the darker areas are. And what happens is that as you are stabbing those darker areas down further, it lifts up the lighter areas so that you get the feeling of texture and dimension. For the waterway, it gives us the feeling that the water's moving, that it's not a stagnant pool, that there's activity going on. And I just take a look at the areas that have got a natural depth to them that makes it look like a shadow. Now, I could take and like our inspiration photo, our inspiration piece, I could take and I could add some dark rock-like features. And here would be a good place to put one because that looks like it's surrounding something. You could put smaller ones in different areas as well. Here looks like there's a really big one. So there are different ways to play with that. Now, the other thing that I want to show you, in addition to adding the line, in addition to just going through everything, in addition to stabbing those shadows back into the recessed areas, which is what I'm doing right here, right now. I'm stabbing the darker areas so that that can allow some dimension and texture here. You can also come in at a 45-degree angle between one area and another area, and that helps deliver a little bit of a line between those areas, and it allows you to get, again, some more definition. And then after you've done the 45-degree angle, you can go over it with just a straight up and down stabbing. But that builds in another layer of dimension for you. So that's the basics of, can I needle felt with non-wool fibers and on craft felt? And the answer is yes. I'll keep working on this. This will be a fun rainy day kind of project for me, and I'll see what it becomes after this. But we've got the basics of a very nice little landscape here, and I hope that I've been able to show you a couple of tips and tricks, and that this has helped you see that, yeah, there's a lot more to this felting thing than what you first thought. So I look forward to seeing you all again on Monday. Tomorrow's post will come up at 10 a.m. It's Fan Friday, and I will wish you all a wonderful Memorial Day weekend. And yes, I'm still going to be here on Monday because, you know, you work for yourself. There's not always holidays, and I don't have anything planned. So if you don't have anything planned for 10 a.m. on Monday, come join me. And then you'll still have time to go out and have a cookout or hot dogs or go to the beach or go to the lake or whatever. So I will talk to you all later. Thanks for being with me for this very long combo. Tell me Thursday what to felt. TMT WTF. So I'll see you all later. Have a great day. Thanks for being here. Bye bye.